Okay, so auspicious greetings, Venerables, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Aggie, for your kind introduction, and to the Buddhist Library for organizing these Dharma sessions, no matter what conditions present themselves to you. And of course, I'm grateful to everyone online from around the world for taking the time to be here with me today. I'm aware that for some, it may be rather early in the morning, and for others, late at night. So thank you, thank you. Please allow me to begin by acknowledging the Dharawal people as the traditional owners of the land on which Nantian Institute resides. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you all are. And I pay my respects to the elders past and present and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters on which we now have the privilege to enjoy. I don't know about you, but I came to Buddhism because I wanted answers. Renowned physicist and mathematician Brian Greene recently published a book called Until the End of Time, Mind, Matter, and Our Search for Meaning in an Evolving Universe. Even he said that mathematics can only describe the reality that we are immersed in. It cannot explain nor teach us how to live. So over 20 years ago, I departed from my training in science and engineering to enter a very different quest. I would say a lifelong journey of learning on how to be effectively human. As part of this quest, I read one Buddhist sutra after another. And now, today, my travels brought me to the perfection of wisdom literature. So today, I hope that I will make the Dharma workshop a little more relevant by sharing a kind of mini crisis that I'm experiencing. Then I will introduce two chapters of the Astasahasrika Prajñaparamita Sutra, or the Sutra of the Perfection of Wisdom in 8,000 lines. And I'll summarize the title by referring to it as Ashta. We will unpack the story of the Bodhisattva Sadāprarudita, commonly known as the ever-weeping Bodhisattva, and what Bodhisattva Dhammodgata taught him. You will then use the teachings to counsel me out of my mini crisis. And we will end with your reflections on the nature of experience and how an understanding of that nature of experience can help you to overcome whatever you may encounter during this pandemic. So does that sound like a reasonable plan for everyone? I apologize for those of you who came with the expectation that I will be your counselor. I must say, oops, it turns out now that you are going to be my counselor. So it'd be helpful to first share a little story. When I was in the United States, Venerable Master Hsing, who would visit the University of West in Los Angeles at least once a year. One day, I arranged for a press interview, and a motley group of reporters arrived for this rare opportunity to meet the Venerable Master. Now, I was really worried that the reporters would ask questions related to politics instead of Buddhism. But the Master kindly told me not to worry and shared this parable. He said that when a young bird learns to fly, it will first be pushed to the edge of its nest. At that time, it can either fall to its death or soar into the skies. He likes to be pushed to the edge and see if he will soar into the skies. This parable resonates with me very much because I like to be in my comfort zone and avoid the edges of my nest. But every now and then, the invisible hand pushes me to the edge. And when that happens, I will recall this episode, and I hope that you will too. So now for my mini crisis. I know that I have a weakness. It is called not being able to say no. It is not only about saying no to others, but also saying no to the next big idea my consciousness sends my way. The result is that I end up with more and more tasks on my to-do lists. If I start with 10 tasks in a day, I may tick off 2, finish some new tasks that appear in my inbox, and add 5 new tasks. If my goal is to reduce the items on my to-do list, guess who is the loser day after day? Yes, you are right. I have not won a single day this year. And I'm usually a very productive person and a good project planner. Unfortunately, I was born under the star of Virgo for a very good reason. I have this perfectionistic streak that must have come from lifetimes of perfection. So let me express to you my frustration every day. I struggle in meetings because my mind is full and I shirked as many responsibilities as possible. I know that I should not be on social media because it commands my attention when I need to focus to complete important tasks on my to-do list. But yet, I succumb to those nasty interferences. I also now have so little time that I'm late for meals, which means that I get to eat cold meals in the winter, which is very bad for an already weak stomach. And of course, exercise is a luxury, and a good night's sleep is difficult to come by. So looking at how irritable I get, I know that I am at the limit or the edge of my little bird's nest. My reality is not pleasant. Any one more task and I will either fall to my death or soar into the sky. What are my options? Step back by reducing my commitments so that I can be in my comfort zone again? Continue to accept new tasks but crumble into depression? Or continue to accept new tasks but find a way out? So for today, please help me to choose the third option. So instead of teaching me to delegate or to turn away tasks, as a dedicated Buddhist, my first thought is to turn to the Dharma for answers. And today, I'd like us to turn to the Ashta, or the Sutra of the Perfection of Wisdom in 8,000 lines for answers. In my last talk with the Buddhist Library, I contextualized the Platform Sutra by situating it within Mahayana Buddhism. I also introduced the Prajñaparamita, which is the Sanskrit term for the perfection of wisdom, as well as concepts such as samsara, nirvana, dukkha, prajna, shunyata, and tathagata garbha. Well, since the recording of that talk is still available, I will not revisit these terms in any detail, but I'll provide a quick recap. Samsara is a way of describing the endless cycle of rebirths that sentient beings are subject to. And to me, it is the endless addition of tasks to my to-do list. In early Buddhism, nirvana is the goal of Buddhist practice and is often seen as the cessation of samsara. That is, let me aim for 0 items on the to-do list. However, in Mahayana Buddhism, the goal is different. It is the transformation of samsara. That means trying to reimagine or relive samsara in an enlightened state. So, I will have an endless and growing to-do list, but how do I responsibly cope with this list? That is, instead of experiencing dis-ease or suffering, commonly called dukkha, looking at my list, can I develop and perfect prajna wisdom to transform my dukkha? How do I see a full to-do list as empty, or more accurately in Sanskrit, as shunyata, and shunyata as a full to-do list? So by perceiving the true nature of this experience, can I see the Buddha nature or the Tathagata Garbha in a to-do list? So all right, my friends, I hope you now appreciate how this talk is really a continuation of the last one on the Platform Sutra by one tracing the Platform Sutra back to its roots in the Prajñaparamita literature, and 2, putting some principles into a real context for our practice in today's workshop. So today I do not have time to introduce the rich Prajñaparamita literature to you, nor even the full text of the Astasahasrika Prajñaparamita Sutra, that's in 8,000 lines. It would take at least a semester of detailed reading to just scratch the surface of the sutra. But for today, I would like to go to the last 2 chapters of the Sutra of the Perfection of Wisdom, and the main character in chapter 27 is a Bodhisattva by the name of Sadāprarudita. So I'd like you to pay careful attention, because later on, I hope that you'll be able to use episodes of this to counsel me, and I hope through that you will be able to get a closer understanding of what Prajñaparamita is. So the story is also a past life story of the Buddha, and it uses vivid episodes to recount his struggles and accomplishments on his quest. Bodhisattva Sadāprarudita has one goal, and that is to search for Prajñaparamita, the perfection of wisdom, so that, he quotes, so that he can be a light for all living beings and accumulate Buddha qualities, unquote. Please note his motivation again, and that is to be a light for all living beings and accumulate Buddha qualities. That's a very typical bodhicitta resolve in Mahayana. So when Sadāprarudita Bodhisattva initially sought Prajñaparamita, he neither relied on any worldly things, nor valued his own life, nor craved for gain or benefit. This aligns very well with his intent to be a light for all living beings and learn the Dharma. Anything else does not matter. So this reminds me of the movie Hachi, where this breed of dogs called Akitas do not fetch balls for private gains. So back to Sadāprarudita. His quest for Prajñaparamita proves to be very difficult, causing him great distress, and hence he weeps repeatedly. This accounts for his name, Sadāprarudita, which means ever weeping. Nowhere could he find a Buddha teaching, the sutras, or practitioners practicing the religious life. Day after day, he's in a state of extreme grief, weeping and crying because of his desire to find the great Dharma, and yet not being able to do so. Perhaps it is important for us to reflect on our passion. What are we so passionate about that we will repeatedly cry out for it? Sadāprarudita must have been very intent on his search, for one day, when he was in the wilderness, he heard a voice in the sky, probably a god, and the voice says, "O gentle son, go east from here, and you will be able to hear Prajñaparamita." Wow, that's great, you got the answer. And further, the voice instructed, you should hold all things as empty, signless, and intentionless. You should seek Prajñaparamita by forsaking all signs, forsaking all views of existence, forsaking the view of a living being, view of a person, view of a soul. Oh, gentle son, you should forsake bad friends and draw near to good friends. In case you're wondering what this meant by empty, signless, and intentionless, these are generally considered the 3 concentration states in Mahayana Buddhism. Concentration states are also called samadhis, and we'll discuss them in a little while. So just look at the list of things one has to let go, not just once, but with focused attention. So Sadāprarudita Bodhisattva happily received these teachings and started going east, but quickly realized that he forgot to ask 2 important questions. Sadāprarudita forgot to ask, how far east should I go? And from whom will he hear the Prajñaparamita? At that time, guess what? He cried again. And in the sutra, he says that his distress and sorrow are like the parent losing his or her only child. So touched by his sincerity, an image of the Buddha appeared to answer his questions. The image said that Sadāprarudita should travel 500 leagues east to a city called Gandavati, and his teacher would be the Dharmodgata Bodhisattva. And the name Dharmodgata means extended by the Dharma. So upon receiving his answers, Sadāprarudita immediately entered 52 different samadhis, those concentration states. And these are concentration states from seeing the nature of things, through destroying ignorance about things, forsaking all views, forsaking all characteristics, and even forsaking the vision of the Buddhas. Samadhi is a form of concentration that leads to vision. And in Venerable Dr. Changzi's 2012 Buddhist Studies Review article, he argued that in Chinese Buddhism, the entering samadhis of this story was particularly significant in early Pure Land tradition, especially for recollecting the Buddhas. So the Buddha image that then disappeared, which caused Sadāprarudita to now wish to know and answer to another question. And that question is, where did the Buddhas come from? Where have they gone? So I hope that you realize the importance of research questions, even when we are on a spiritual quest, and the importance of having the right questions ready when you're preparing to meet a great master. So on the way to see his would-be teacher, Sadāprarudita decides to make a bodily self-sacrifice in order to obtain valuables to honor the Bodhisattva Dharmodgata. However, he encounters Mara's obstruction to his efforts and is unable to acquire help. Shakra, ruler of a heaven, appears then, and he appears to test Sadāprarudita's resolve. So Sadāprarudita happily cut flesh from his body in order to obtain offerings from Shakra. But fortunately, he was stopped by a magistrate's daughter who then provides him with riches and servants to honor the Dharmodgata Bodhisattva. On meeting Bodhisattva Dharmodgata, Sadāprarudita pays utmost respect to the teacher and asks, I truly wish that the master will explain to me right now, from where have the Buddhas come and where have they gone? Just so that I may never again lose sight of the Buddhas. So just look at why he asked the question, so that he can always have the Buddhas in his heart. So in chapter 28, Bodhisattva Dharmodgata teaches Sadāprarudita, O gentle son, the Buddhas neither come from anywhere, nor do they go to anywhere. What is the reason for this? Because the suchness of things is immovable. Suchness, tathagata, is representing suchness. So suchness of things, immovable. And the suchness of things is the tathagata. And tathagata is another name for Buddhas. So if you want to hold Buddhas in our minds, just look at this. We have to know that the Buddhas neither come from anywhere, nor do they go anywhere. Because the suchness of things is around us, is immovable. So by analogy, in the midday heat of the last month of spring, one sees in a mirage galloping wild horses. So a foolish man will chase after them, thinking that he will find water. Oh, gentle son, what do you think? Where does this quote-unquote water come from? Sadāprarudita replied to the teacher, within a mirage, there is no water, much less a place from where it comes or to where it goes. It is only through foolish people's misunderstanding that they imagine there's water, but there's really no water. So this is the crux of Prajñaparamita, the understanding of emptiness and suchness. Further, Bodhisattva Dharmottagata also says, as for the bodies of the Tathagatas, of the Buddhas, there is no fixed thing. They do not come from the 10 directions, nor do they exist without cause. They only arise as a result of past actions, exist through the coming together of many conditions, and no longer exist when those conditions cease. Dependent co-origination. He goes on to teach, the bodies of the Tathagatas are the result of many causes brought about by immeasurable merits. They neither arise from a single cause or merit, nor do they exist without any cause or conditions. They do not come from any particular place, but only exist due to the coming together of many conditions. They do not go anywhere, but cease when separated from those conditions. And before the chapter ends, Sadāprarudita Bodhisattva enters 60,000 different samadhis or concentration states. I wish now to offer everyone a 3-minute break to reflect on the story, or maybe a 1-minute break to reflect on the story, so just recall it. This story has mesmerized many people. Famous Indian masters Chandrakirti and Shantideva use episodes of this story for their teachings. Eminent Tibetan masters such as Milarepa and Tsongkhapa cite this story as an ideal model of master-disciple relationship. Sadāprarudita Bodhisattva's dedication to the quest of Prajñaparamita is also exemplary. So let's take a very short break to reflect on the story. Feel free to journal down any aspects of the story that stands out to you. Okay, and you're welcome to share your insights in the chat stream. And I will play a very short piece of background music in the meantime to help you to recall. Or maybe what I will do instead of playing music is I'll go back over my slides in case you have lost. You can't remember what was going on. So what I'll do is I'll just go through the various slides for the next 1 minute, and you feel free to capture. You can either watch those slides if you think you have not taken enough notes, or if you have, you just journal down. At the end of the minute, I'll request that you share your insights in the chat stream. Okay, so let's take a minute now while I return to the various slides backwards and then forwards over the next minute. So please feel free to share in the chats if you have any particular insights that you have gathered from this story. What do you feel resonates with you? You can open your chat stream and enter some of your thoughts. And while you do so, I will carry on with yes, please feel free to put in some of your thoughts in the chat. Cultivation immeasurable merits is part of the Bodhisattva path. That's so true. The master-disciple relationship is an important one. Thank you. And we'll answer questions. I'll take questions later. Aggie will help look at the questions in a little while. So thank you so much for sharing. And please continue to share your gift in the Dharma. And I've personally found it helpful to take pauses, especially after hearing something significant. It gives my brain a chance to assimilate the lessons before moving on to the next stage, which is to apply the Dharma in the daily life. So if you recall, I'm now the victim of an ever-expanding to-do list. How can Sadāprarudita Bodhisattva's story help me? Aggie will divide us into groups of 4. And in the next 10 minutes, maybe 8 minutes, Aggie, we are running a little late. So please get to know one another and discuss how you may offer me counsel. And we will invite you back to share your suggestions, perhaps via chat or the unmute to speak when we return. Let me share with you how I felt under the burdens of these to-do lists. I felt like a rechargeable battery that is wearing out faster and faster, just like my old mobile phone. Of course, age does not help because a trophy is existentially real. However, on top of that, there are some external factors, such as a more complex world, using up my energy much faster. So I can fully identify with Sadāprarudita Bodhisattva on his quest for Prajñaparamita, but unable to find it. I return to my motivation, much less noble than Sadāprarudita, but still about being enlightened to the Prajñaparamita in order to benefit self and others. So I've decided as a starter to rename my to-do lists as to-care lists. I used to have separate lists called Big Rocks and Little Rocks, as my executive coach friend Mac Hart teaches me to do. That ensures that I finish at least some of the big rocks. That's what you are telling me about priorities, right? So my big rocks first, and still have room for the little rocks. Now, if you pick up my list today, you will see them titled as Big Hearts and Little Hearts. That now to me is the suchness of these lists. It is not about quickly ticking off things, but it's rather about my attitude towards each task and to respect the conditions that brought them to me, as well as allow them to leave me. Dhammoddhata Bodhisattva is like a charger. If we can get ourselves plugged in, we can be enervated. So these days, we do not have to travel 500 leagues anymore to seek the Prajñaparamita. And I'm privileged to have access to many manifestations of Dhammoddhata Bodhisattva. They are in the form of my teachers, Venerable Master Hsing, Professor Louis Lancaster, and the many Dharma friends on this journey with me. And that, of course, includes all of you online. The real problem is to create enough space and time for me to remain plugged in long enough before I have to disconnect from the charger to get onto the next task. And hence, I found The weekly communities of practice, Sunday check-in sessions, so useful to help me to concentrate and to connect. For 30 to 60 minutes a week, I connect again to the many Dharmagata Bodhisattvas from around the world. And you are welcome to plug in too. So I hope you have found that this small segment of the Ashta and my case study resonating with you. The pandemic has widened gaps, something we know quite well. The rich gets richer and the poor gets poorer. Emeritus Professor Stephen Hill reminds us in almost every speech he gives that the wealth of US billionaires increased by US $1.6 trillion in the 13 months to April 2021, all from capitalizing on the COVID-19 crisis. As a result of job cuts, those who lost jobs struggled to eat, while those who retained their jobs struggled to keep their head above water, trying to do 2 or 3 people's work. So what I'd like to invite you to do is to again take one moment to reflect on your own crisis, whether it's big or small. What are you experiencing now that may be causing you to suffer or struggle? It may or may not be about to-do lists. In fact, having nothing to do, but filling our minds with negative thoughts of loneliness or fears is also a form of unending consciousness list. So I'll give you 1 minute to reflect to some beautiful music that a volunteer from Brisbane composed. Something I've learned from my exploration of the perfection of wisdom is a redefinition of samsara. It is not the endless addition of tasks to my to-do list. That is the problem. It is not. But my attitude towards that inevitable addition of tasks to my to-do list. So an important statement in the Ashta that I've been contemplating for a few months now is this that's on the screen. That thought is not thought, because that thought is essentially clear of characteristics. That thought is essentially clear of characteristics. So let me illustrate this cryptic statement with an example. We tend to like flowers and we dislike rubbish. So what happens when the flowers eventually wilt? They turn into rubbish. And what happens when that rubbish gets developed into a compost, maybe, for the plant, which then ends up being the next season's flowers? So there's really no need to be too attached to any particular like or dislike. No thought is to let the mind flow freely without abiding in anything. We can be free of thought by not attaching to the arising or cessation of thoughts. So to me, this particular statement, that thought is not thought, because that thought is essentially clear of characteristics, is at the crux of realizing the true nature of our experiences. So what is preventing me from seeing things as they really are? So I am the Sadāprarudita on my journey to search for wisdom. And what is Mara doing to me? I think that our society's emphasis on productivity has put even me, a Buddhist nun, on overdrive. In the distracted mind and ancient brains in a high-tech world, Adam Gazzaley and Larry Rosen say that our neural system has two parts, bottom-up and top-down. The bottom-up interaction is needed for survival, as we needed to be alerted to danger signals. The top-down interaction helps us to be goal-directed with deliberate attention. Well, what happens in our world of notifications and social media? It has become harder and harder for us to sustain top-down attention. And without this top-down attention, it will be almost impossible for us to enter any state of samadhis. So you have to note, Sadāprarudita entered 52 samadhis at the beginning of his journey towards seeing his teacher. And after receiving the teachings, he entered 60,000 samadhis. And what do we need? We need that attention. So the solution doesn't come from blaming the internet and disruptive technologies, though. Maria Popova, founder of an advertisement-free blog called Brain Pickings, it has millions of readers worldwide. So Maria says that the internet, and I would add social media for that matter, is just a new canvas for an old human condition at digital speed with viral ramification. They are acting as a magnifying glass on every human inclination, beautiful and terrible, trivial and mean, generous and curious. Yes, we now have a magnifying glass to see our very own karma in action. We are shaping and being shaped by the media, whether it's mass media or social media. So I would like to adapt Jack Cornfield's Big Sky meditation to help us use the magnifying glass to see the nature of our experience today. The sky does not identify with objects such as clouds, birds, or aeroplanes that pass by. The nature of our experiences can be seen by looking at the sky, ungraspable and constantly changing. So if you would like to join me, please sit upright and adjust your body so that you are relaxed. You may close your eyes or look out into the sky as you listen to my words. And you can feel free to close your eyes anytime throughout this meditation. Relax into your awareness, the infinite space of awareness. Allow things to appear and to present themselves to you, including my voice. Contemplate on how my voice appears and vanishes. In its true nature, our mind is like the sky. boundless and silent. Let us relax into this boundless awareness, just as we trust the sky. Let us trust our mind. Rest in it. Let images and thoughts arise like the clouds. And after a time, allow them to vanish. The same goes for sensations and emotions. Handle them like you handle the clouds. Watch them float by and slowly change. Notice the shape of the clouds or the color of the sky. And in the same way, notice your moods and feelings. Whether they are feelings of loneliness, joy, agitation, or peace. Know that they exist because of conditions and will dissolve and pass away, just like the clouds. Trust that boundless awareness. Let us fill that vast space with care, compassion, and patience. Our true nature can be experienced in the flow with mastery and confidence. And so it is with my experience of to-do lists. It is not the external to-do list or the overflowing inbox, but rather my experience of it that is crucial here. May our future thoughts about these external to care lists arise from a position of gift and a culture of care. It is not about driving away any struggles, but rather taking the time to pause, to appreciate where the struggles come from and where the struggles went. Like how the Dhammodgata Bodhisattva taught Sadāprarudita, they are causal. And once we transform those conditions, the experience can be more enriching. I invite you to use this big sky meditation anytime. I've used it a lot these few days. Just looking at the sky, looking at that boundlessness, and allowing my heart to grow as magnanimous as the space. And when you're ready, I welcome you to join me by opening your eyes, if you wish, and reading this prayer by Venerable Master Hsing together with me. I can only pray to you, great Buddha. May I possess a magnanimous mind and forgive my enemies who have mistreated me. May I have a grateful mind and repay my friends who have helped me. May I have a mind of prajna wisdom and reflect upon my own shortcomings. May I have a zealously progressing mind and carry out your compassionate teachings. O great compassionate Buddha, thank you for your teaching and guidance. May I abandon the weapons of hatred and vengeance and enjoy the refreshing happiness of hearing your teachings and meditating on Dharma joy. May I remove the shackles of attachment and liberate my body and mind. O great compassionate Buddha, please accept my sincerest prayer. As a final gift to one another today, let us now return to our breakout rooms, the same one that you were in earlier if the technology works out well. Take turns to share your mini or mega crisis. And please help to counsel one another, using any parts of the perfection of wisdom you have heard today. Yeah, I want to thank everyone for your patience and for joining me this evening. I hope you found some value with the little breakout rooms, this little story, and something may resonate with you or not. I was thinking, Aggie, we may have a few minutes for anyone with questions that we can look at how we can treat our life as what we call the Chinese gongans or public cases. Perhaps we can use this opportunity to have people raise questions if they wish, and or maybe just receive some feedback. And if you monitor the time, Aggie, we'll close about 8:20. So let me just give a quick summary of what we've done today. So I started by sharing my teacher's anecdote about a baby bird learning to fly by being pushed to the edge of a nest, and followed that with my mini crisis. That set the stage for 2 chapters of the Astasahasrika Prajñaparamita Sutra, or the Sutra of the Perfection of Wisdom in 8,000 lines. As we unpack the story of the Bodhisattva Sadāprarudita, commonly known as the ever-weeping Bodhisattva, and what Bodhisattva Dhammodgata taught him, we realize a few important things about his journey. I just summarized a few here. One is to set a strong motivation for the greater good. And 2 is to be willing to sacrifice the small self for this bigger self. 3 is to seek good friends. And 4 is to ask the right questions. So as we use external circumstances to help us reflect on the nature of our experience, we will come to appreciate the conditional arising and cessation nature of all experiences. And perhaps we can now allow ourselves to be pushed to the edge of our nest. Cross that threshold confidently. And as we look up into the sky, so that we may soar above our troubles by recognizing the conditional nature of all phenomena. I must say that I'm slowly turning myself from an ever-weeping bodhisattva to an ever-grateful bodhisattva. Perhaps it is time for us to write a new chapter on Asada Kritājña Bodhisattva, where Kritājña is Sanskrit for gratitude. Reading sutras with the goal of becoming wiser and more compassionate increases our relationships with the world around us. And remember, it's not just about reading, it's really about the practice. As As a final call out to anyone who would like to continue your quest, please feel free to check out our courses in Nantian Institute. Our subjects are taught in intensive mode and are now all available online. Just email study@nantian.edu.au. And of course, please feel free to register for the Communities of Practice Sunday check-in sessions. And you're also welcome to drop Grace Ewart a note if you'd like to be on our mailing list for a very exciting symposium on humanistic Buddhism held the first weekend of November. So now a few words about this not to be missed symposium. Our keynote dialogue will be held between Emeritus Professor Louis Lancaster, one of the top, if not the top Buddhist studies scholar, and Australia's top social researcher, Hugh Mackay. They will share their life experiences around crisis for the first 45 minutes, with an opportunity for you to ask questions for another 45 minutes. Our first international panel speaks to creating an inclusive society, while our second panel looks at the complex systems we entwine ourselves within. Third panel features some Australian responses to modern crisis. Fourth panel looks at Buddhist adaptations today. And the fifth panel examines an issue that the pandemic has raised to the fore, health and well-being. And the final panel explores how NTI and the community at large put compassion into action. So please save the date, 6 to 8 November, to join our panels of international and local speakers to co-create the future based on our intrinsic human goodness. So finally, I would like to invite us all to dedicate the merits of today's workshop to all beings who may or may not be on the quest to perfect wisdom, who may or may not be wishing to seek wisdom, but who are all in the same karmic existence that we are in. Let us wish for all beings to be safe and well.
Let us now dedicate the goodness of what you have done to all living beings. May kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity pervade all worlds. May we cherish and build affinities to benefit all beings. May Chan, Pure Land, and precepts inspire equality and patience. May our gratitude and humility give rise to great vows.